All right, look at that. We're already here, ready to go. I love it when a plan comes together quickly.
Yay.
All right, Big Juice already said he can't wait. I guess we got some of your followers joining us too. We got 12 likes before we even get started. So I'm glad to see some folks are already here for an early morning Saturday. It's depending on what time it is where you are, it's 10 a.m. here. I'm in Georgia today. I'm visiting with my mother for Mother's Day. And today I've got a guest with me. I've got Rina. Do you pronounce that Alawari?
Ahluwalia. Very close.
Ahluwalia. All right. And you're coming from, I know
So
you're
I'm
originally from
currently living
Australia, but go ahead.
so I'm currently living in Turkey, in Istanbul, Turkey. And funny story, I moved here 6 months ago with one suitcase. That's the beauty of carnivore, minimalism. So one suitcase, that's all I need. And yeah, so right now it is 5 p.m.
Okay. Well, I'd love to talk a little bit more about that minimalism because I definitely have found that to be the case for me too, getting to where I just need less other things in general. And it's interesting that a way of eating seems to make that change. Um, but I know your channel, 5 Minute Body. I haven't really, up until we met at KetoCon, I didn't know much about it. And don't let that be a strike against you. I don't really go searching out for a lot of new stuff to watch on YouTube. But I saw a couple of your videos, and I was happy to see that you were doing a lot, especially with the ladies who have a lot of questions about this that sometimes I don't always have the answers for. So I'm glad we're going to get a chance to talk about some of that today. And I'm trying something that I haven't done before, and I'm hoping that we're going to get a good response from it. I'm going to have a few giveaways in today's broadcast, and during the live stream, I want to have something special. But I wanted to make it open to also to people who are going to be watching this after the live stream. So I've got a few things I wanted to show you guys that what I'm going to do is offer these simply for random selection based on people who comment, giving their story on how carnivore has affected their life. And then I'm going to randomly pick a few people. I'm going to start with one that gives them some carnivore crisps, ribeye, one of my
They are so
favorite
good.
flavors. Yeah, I love
Me
them.
too. So good.
So, and that's, let's see here, just to show the value of these things. Carnivore crisp ribeye. Oop, that's not it. That I already gave away the big prize. There's the value of the carnivore crisp ribeye. That's $11.99 right now on sale. So, a lot of times folks tell me that's a lot of money for a few ounces of beef, but I got to tell you, I sure am glad when I have those couple of ounces when I need them. Sometimes when I'm at work or on the road or somewhere like that,
And
they
if you're
really come in
traveling,
handy.
if you're on a long flight, I ate 2 Carnival Crisp bags when I was taking a 16-hour flight from Austin, Texas at KetoCon to Turkey. So sometimes you need to have, something other than eggs and tuna.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Let's see. The next thing I'm going to be doing is some of my favorite relight. This is the unflavored version. You can't really see it too well there because my camera's not focusing on it. But I have somewhere here, getting used to this software too, to allow me to show all this stuff. I'm not used to doing the live streams yet. So I'm excited to have you share this with my second live stream, Rena. My first one was with the owner of KetoCon.
Oh,
So this is
that's
the
fun.
Relight Hydration, and that's a $42 value. And I'm going to send you the unflavored version. A lot of people have pointed out to me on YouTube comments that Relight has coconut water in it, but not the unflavored version. It also doesn't have the calcium additive, so it's not quite as easily mixable as the other stuff. But I love it. I think it works out great, just the way it is. And then the next thing I've got, this is going to be available to everybody. Anybody who's watching now or later. I guess I'll cut it off in a few days, but I'm just going to look for any comments that come out over the next couple of days. And that's the Meter Plus probe. And this is really fantastic. Those of you who've been watching my channel for a while, I love this thing. It's great for getting the temperature on your steak while you're cooking in an air fryer, for instance, like I like to do. And you can use it on a grill as long as it's not all the way up to searing temperature. and it works directly with your iPhone to make it real easy to check and see what temperature you're cooking at. Let me see here. Put that on the screen for you to show you what kind of value that is. Normally, that's $100 item, and right now it's $79, but we're going to give one of those away. And then lastly, I don't have it with me because, like I said, I am up in Georgia at my mom's, and I didn't want to carry a whole nother box with me. I'm going to be giving away one of these London Sunshine air fryers that they sent me, that I just really appreciate all these companies. I mean, they sent me all of these things, so I'm not going to take any credit. I didn't buy these things. They were kind enough to send them to me to be able to talk about them. But I wanted to be able to share some of the love that they've shared with me with all of you guys out there so that you guys can enjoy some of this. But that air fryer is going to be special for somebody who's watching live today.
Very special. That's what I use 100% of the time. So it's very special. Very important.
All right. So now that we've gotten through some of that, Rina, tell everybody little bit about yourself and how you came into this way of eating. And if you want to, you can start off by talking about your channel a little bit, or we can wrap up at the end and let them know about what 5 Minute Body is about. But I'd really like to get the woman's perspective on this, because I know you've been doing carnivore for a few years now and you came from a different background. So I'm just kind of let you take it away and I'll ask questions along the way. How's that sound?
Sounds fantastic. Well, this is probably something I haven't actually spoken about a lot. And earlier on, I was talking to my partner about, what is my story and why did I actually come to carnivore? And when I was thinking about all the little things along the last 20 years, I was like, wow, we all have a story. We've all been through a lot and we all find our journey and our journey to health in different ways. Sometimes it's weight gain, or it's obesity, it's diabetes, it's insulin, all these different things. For me, when I was younger, my dad left our family when I was age 7. My mum was not around. My sister was pretty much in a bad situation. So basically, what happened is I had a very dysfunctional family. And the way that I handled that was to actually control my external environment. So instead of eating a lot, I was restricting my calories. I was over exercising. I was doing the low fat, high carb diet. And I did that until I was age 20. And through that journey, I developed eating problems. There was a syndrome called night eating syndrome. And basically, what that means is you wake up in the middle of the night, you eat the amount of food that you would typically eat during the day, you would do that at nighttime. And I was doing that behavior because I was so undernourishing myself. And I was seeing doctors, psychologists, psychiatrists, everything that I could to help with all of these eating problems, because I would over exercise the next day, then I would undereat the next day just to try to balance all the calories. And then I was on Zoloft. I was on every medication that they could give me and nothing worked. And then by the time that I was 30, I thought, if I keep doing the same thing, I'm going to keep getting the same results. So I found keto and I tried everything. Keto, I was vegetarian for 2 years. That gave me really bad skin. And also at the same time, I was also listening to other people like Tony Robbins, Tom Bilyeu, James Clear, all these things about mindset, because I wanted to look at who are the top people out there and how are they living a great life? How are they in shape? How are they feeling happy? How are they feeling optimal? So I did all that. And at the same time, I was also working in pharmaceuticals. So if anybody knows firsthand around pharmaceuticals and pushing drugs and pills, I saw it firsthand. So I realized that nobody was going to help me but myself. No doctor, no psychiatrist, nobody, no drug even. Then 2.5 years ago, I found carnivore. And then along with everything else that I work on, which is what I eat, how I think, how I move, and how I sleep, I was able to change my life. I no longer have night eating syndrome. I don't have an eating disorder. I don't restrict my calories. I'm at a healthy weight. I don't do anything extreme. And I'm living a healthy, happy life without drugs, without seeing doctors, and without doing all these different things that I know a lot of people go down that route because they think it's the right thing. But at the end of the day, as I said, if you want health and optimal health, the change is going to come within you. And my mission in life and what I do on the channel, on my YouTube channel, 5 Minute Body, is to encourage people to find their way of living so that they can be happy and just achieve an optimal life.
Okay. Well, that does shed a light on a lot of things that you've been through. That's a quick story.
Well,
You
I
did
try
good.
to not make it too long because I know that, I mean, if I go down the rabbit hole over all these different things, but I mean, I touched on a few things. If anybody has questions, they can put it in the
Yes.
comments, and Dante can definitely see those comments along with why you are carnivore and what is your favorite thing about carnivore, how it's changed your life for the giveaway. Um, but there are a lot of things in everyone's story, but the main thing is what has helped you change your life. Most likely, it's going to be how you eat. That's going to change your gut function, your brain biochemistry, so that you can actually think in a better way. You can question things. And that goes back into the minimalism thing that we were talking about.
Mm.
You see, it's all connected. So that's a brief about my story.
Yeah, when it comes to the minimalism side of it, the interesting thing for me is my wife and I used to talk about how we want to have less clutter in our lives in general. But once I started doing this way of eating, it's like it became second nature to just start cutting out things that were not helping me, but actually hindering me from being the best I could or being able to do the things I really want to do. All of the things that we own sometimes feel like they can actually start to chain us down and make us feel like we're a slave to them rather than being something for us, especially when something you count on breaks down. And being able to rely on less and less has been a great blessing to this one, to this side of my story. And even being able to cut out certain vices that I used to lean on for mental support or physical support, whether it was smoking or vaping or drinking or a number of other things that certainly didn't need to be in my life. They're just easy to let go of when you feel better, and when you're constantly watching what you put in your body, it seems like you're also careful about what you're letting come into your mind's eye and what you spend your money on and where you spend your time. So I definitely agree with that. I'm curious to know your viewpoint on the calories thing, because I too have had the attitude that I don't have to think about calories the entire 2 years and say almost a month of doing this. Now I've been doing this a couple months longer than that. But I ran into something a couple months ago where I started eating uh, more than I was before, and I wasn't really noticing it at first, except that I was eating twice a day all the time, and I just kind of counted that up to the fact that I was working so much more than I had been before. I was working a steady 40 hours a week, and on my job, I'm constantly on the go and on my feet. So I thought, well, it's okay that I'm eating twice a day, and I was used to eating about 2 pounds of meat a day. I wasn't really noticing until really just a few days ago when I weighed some of the steaks I've been cooking, and those were smaller than some of the ones I've been cooking. And they were a pound and 6 ounces or a pound and 7 ounces for one steak. And I had some that were much larger than that and still ate other times of the day. So I was eating at least 50% to almost double what I was eating for a while. And I got to admit, I think it had something to do with the fact that I started using the Redmond smoke salts. They're so good, it just made me want to eat more of them, more food. And I had to kind of, all right, I got to ramp it back because I've gotten to where I'm just thinking about having some more of that too much. But the caloric intake definitely put a few pounds back on. And then I started to cut back, and I've already lost a good bit of that already. But so when it comes to that, I mean, have you noticed anything where you ever had the tendency to want to overeat or have any of issues in that area where caloric intake does become important?
Absolutely. For me, I can. So, this is the thing about me. Some people look at me and think I'm naturally slim. Not the case. Not the case at all. The reason why, if I look a certain way or I maintain a lean physique, is because I do certain things every day. And for me, or for what I teach on my group, is calories or energy, let's not call it calories, how much you eat matters. But the great thing about carnivore or the lion diet or eating just meat in general is that you don't have to calculate it because you want to have simplicity. Not many people can actually calculate their calories and macros day to day and have it in a way that's sustainable for the long term. And the reason why carnivore is so great for weight loss, overall health, immunity, and all the rest of it is because there's no counting, tracking, measuring, or anything. You eat until you feel satiated and then you stop. But having said that, what I like to focus on is portions, and using things that are very, very simple. The palm of your hand, your index finger, or your thumb for the amount of fat that you should eat. Portions still matter because at the end of the day, if you have a lack of sleep or if you're highly stressed, which is most of us, that is going to increase your cortisol, which is your stress hormone. It's going to increase your ghrelin, which is your hunger hormone, and therefore make it a little bit harder for you to stop eating. Unless you're naturally like my partner who can have one Oreo biscuit and stop. I'm not like that, and many people are not like that. But even when it comes to meat, especially butter as well, anything that is satiating or tastes nice, or even if you have something that makes it taste nice, like for example, your Redmond's Real Light or the Redmond's spices or salt or
Smoke
anything,
salt.
any smoked salt. I can just imagine if I tried that, I would just keep eat meat, and I would not stop because there's something about when something increases the taste in your mouth, when you have different textures and when you have different flavors, you can't stop eating because as humans, that's what we like. We seek pleasure. So smoked salt, whether it be electrolytes that have stevia in it, anything flavored, diet soda, all these different things, they're trying to increase the satiety of the actual product. So the best thing that you can do on carnivore is to actually eat meat, good quality salt, and that's going to help you stop when you're actually feeling full. Because I love what Dr. Anthony Chaffee says. Meat will stop tasting good when you are feeling full. Because do you know why? He has plain meat. He doesn't add lots of spices and seasonings and all these different things. That's not to say that if you're new to carnivore that you can't do it. You can do it, but just be mindful to track portions, but not necessarily calories, if that makes sense.
It absolutely does make sense. Um, and it's good to know. I mean, it's just one of those things that kind of caught me off guard because I had been having no issues with anything I had been trying. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, hey, wait a minute, I've put on 18 pounds here. So I still like to have the Redmond smoke salt. I just learned that it's got to be something that I'm going to use more sparingly so that I don't have that constant need to want to eat more of it. And then I've started weighing my steaks. And, I didn't do that for 2 years. So I like to be able to remind people that it's still something that you can do. See, I get that now too, and it's so amazing to me. I thought the same thing you mentioned about how people just assume that you're naturally thin, and I get that now. And I thought, wow, that's never been the case for me. I've always been the big guy, the husky guy, somebody who had a little extra weight. Even at my thinnest points, I was still a big guy. So, but now, I mean, I get that look like, well, it was easy for you. And look, you had to exercise. Of course you did. You did exactly what they've been telling us for years, eat right and exercise. But I said, no, it was eating right that led to the exercise, first of all, because without the eating right, I didn't have the energy or the strength to do the exercise. And then eating right. What they've been telling me since the 1980s was to eat low fat, to eat whole grains, and all of the things that we've been told now as carnivores. Those are exactly the things that we should be avoiding. Well, it's been a miracle finding what Lion Diet did for me. And I also tell folks it doesn't have to be Lion Diet. Lion Diet means ruminant meat. That's beef, that's bison,
Mm.
buffalo, deer, any animal that has the ruminating stomach design where they have multiple chambered stomach that's designed to process grass and remove all of those toxins, and they don't eat other animals. So you get a very different meat. I think it has a different healing effect for different people. And in my case, I apparently needed the most strict version of this because every time I've tried to add much of anything back, it hasn't worked out well. But when I stick with that ruminant meat, everything's fine. But it's ruminant meat, water, and salt only. So it's quite Spartan compared to some of the other carnivore diets out there where you can add pork, you can add chicken, you can add fish. And in some carnivore diets, they add fruit and honey. And I can't do any of that stuff because I just have a hard enough time with portion control. But the diet is what led me to finally say, I can actually lose the weight and I can actually feel good. The reason I started doing the diet had nothing to do with weight loss. It had everything to do with pain. It had to do with a gut issue I was having. The doctors would just look at me like I was crazy. And I said, look, when I heard Dr. Peterson talking about how this diet had cured him of a number of ills, and then his daughter, who was born with this form of rheumatoid arthritis that was just causing her to have surgery after surgery, they were about to fuse her ankles to her foot so that she wouldn't have any motion there just to keep her functioning. And she started eating a lion diet, and it cured all of those issues she had and cured all of the issues he had, whether it was gingivitis, which is linked to heart disease, numbness in his leg. They were both on SSRIs before and were able to come off. And I thought, well, the doctors don't have any answers for me. I'm definitely going to try this. And within days, I felt like a whole different person. But as the weight started coming off, I thought, I'm getting my life back. I feel like I'm finally living the life I always wanted to live. And that's been the amazing part, is just I feel young again. I feel like I got a second chance. Whereas before I felt like I was ready to check out already. But now I'm starting over and I'm 50 years old. And it's a good thing I feel this way. My wife's only 39. I got to hang around and take care of her for a little while longer. So,
Gosh,
my
only
father died when
39.
I was on, yeah, my
Wow.
father was, he died when I was 18. So I've seen my mother have to struggle on for many years after he left. And I'm glad that I'm hopefully putting myself in a position to be able to provide for my family a whole lot longer because of this. So it's been a miracle all the way around. The exercise came after the diet, though. It came within like maybe the first 3 months. I said, I've got so much energy. If I don't start doing something with it, I'm just going to be a nervous wreck, like somebody who drinks too much coffee. But I wasn't drinking any coffee. So I like to let people know that what you said about that, about them seeing you and saying, "Oh, she's always looked that way. She's always felt that way." We see a lot of that with diet commercials and things. You look at these people and you wonder, were they already athletes before? I mean, what happened here? But in my case, and I go into a lot of before and after pictures, I don't recognize the person in my Facebook memories anymore. Every time how Facebook shows you those memories, it says this is what you were doing this time last year or 8 years ago or whatever. I keep seeing this other guy in the picture with my wife.
Oh my, no, I saw your photos and it's incredible. I was shocked to see the difference, and that's the power of carnivore and the power of doing something that is good for you. And at the end of the day, I think people also want to know that it's safe, that it's ancestrally appropriate to eat red meat. I
Yeah.
know that Dr. Berry, spoken to Dr. Kiltz, Anthony Chafee, Sean Baker. There's so many people out there that if you ever have a question around red meat, is it safe? Is it going to cause cancer, heart disease, gout, all the rest of it? I mean, Dante is living proof. Look at his health, 50 years old and looking like he's 30. Amazing. So anything that you can do to improve your health, to know that this is safe is a win. And just like you said that when I started carnivore, I lost 25 pounds in 3 months and I wasn't trying. I honestly was not trying. And I didn't count calories. So if that is not proof enough that it's let's not get this wrong. It's not about, you don't need to care about calories and eat unlimited meat. But if you're eating a diet that is not right for you and your body, which is basically a lot of the plants, all of the, paleo or vegetarianism or all these different kind of lifestyles, if that's not ancestrally appropriate for you, your body is going to hold on, suck in all of that inflammation in the forms of fat. And that's why people are so inflamed and overweight, because they're eating the wrong thing. And when you go to the ancestrally appropriate diet, a lion diet, if you come from any point of view that is addiction, obesity, or any insulin resistance problem, the lion diet is probably one of the most effective ways of eating to actually cure everything. And if you want the results, lion diet, or even triple B&E as well, because I do that, phenomenal.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people tell me about the bacon butter, was it
Yeah.
beef butter, bacon and eggs, triple B and E,
Yeah.
that they've done very well on that as well. It's sometimes hard, I think, though. You got to make sure you find the right bacon because a lot of that bacon has sugar added too. So I don't know if that's a big concern for people on the triple B and E diet, but it is for me. And even though I don't eat pork, sometimes I've dabbled with pork, and I thought I bit into a piece of bacon. I said, this is like a candy bar. I just taste sugar here.
Mhm.
But being on lion
Absolutely.
diet will cause your taste buds to be awake to things they weren't awake to before. Like peanut butter. I used to love peanut butter before I started this diet. It was one of my favorite snacks. And now when I taste it, all I can taste is the dirt the peanuts were in. It's the whole different feel.
Yeah.
Uh, I wanted to ask you about something though for the ladies, especially because I know that I don't know what you've been through, but maybe you've experienced some of this, and maybe just some of the people on your channel have, that you can share some of the things they've related to you about how it has helped with hormonal situations, and possibly even if you've had anybody report anything on ovarian cysts or anything that's related to the feminine that maybe a man wouldn't identify with so much, but that carnivore has had an effect to help those things. Because I know a lot of ladies out there are suffering with those ovarian cysts and difficult issues with hormones being up or down, and doctors have got them on things that are stuck in their arm and got drugs pumping into them unnaturally all the time. So is this a natural way that they can cure some of those things in your experience?
Potentially. So on my group, we do have majority are women. A lot of the things that they go through is menopause. Their hormones change when you hit age 50 and 60. A lot of the belly fat. A lot of the time there is anxiety. But again, when it comes to fixing all of these things, a lot of women find a lot of results in high fat carnivore. And I don't want to say that people watching have to just do high fat carnivore and go straight to 80/20. What that means is increasing the amount of fat that you're currently eating right now, whilst at the same time decreasing the amount of protein that you're eating. And there is a reason for that because your hormones, like your estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, all of these hormones, they function off fat. So if you're feeding your body with an abundance of fat, and especially if you're coming from a low fat diet, if you're coming from any disordered eating, if you're coming from trauma, inflammation, anything with that background, especially for women, women have elevated cortisol. So they need more fat. And especially when it comes to women versus men, women are a lot more sensitive, as I mentioned, to cortisol. So that means that it's going to affect any change that they do is going to affect their sleep, their energy, their mood, their menstrual cycles, and their ability to go through menopause with or without hot flashes and night sweats. Increasing the fat is really going to help. I've done a lot of talks with Dr. Elizabeth Bright, and she is a very strong advocate to try the 80/20 for a while by increasing the fat, decreasing the protein. You don't always have to stay there. So if you find that you're feeling that the fat is too much, you can then decrease the fat slightly. If you measure your macros, you could do 80/20 or 70/30 high fat carnivore. All those is a umbrella under high fat. So we're not just, eating leaner cuts of meat. We're trying to get the fattier cuts of meat. We're adding in some butter, adding in tallow, adding in animal fats. All that is very, very important. And it's not just going to help with the menopause. You mentioned the cysts as well. I haven't come across anybody that's had cysts, but anything that is inflammation, the root cause is from your gut function, and it comes from healing your body. So you have to increase the fat and get your amino acids from the best parts of meat, which is like beef, lamb, venison. Anything that's a ruminant is going to be so ultra healing. The main thing that we also do in our group is we stay away from certain carnivore foods that they can increase allergy amongst many people, like chicken. You mentioned pork. Some people don't tolerate pork well. Egg whites. Some people don't tolerate egg whites. Dairy is a big one. If you have dairy and you're going through anything that causes inflammation, take out the dairy. That is kefir, yogurt, labna, cheese, sour cream, anything that has dairy in it. If you are ultra sensitive, you might have to think about taking out the butter as well. Because although butter has got trace amounts of lactose, sometimes women can actually be sensitive towards that. So at the end of the day, it's about experimenting with what's going on for you. No one person is the same. But
Right.
for women, especially if they increase the fat, it is huge. It makes the biggest difference. I did that for 6 months because I had the addiction and the sugar addiction. I used to be able to eat like a stevia jar like this. I could eat half of it in one day with peanut butter.
Stevia.
Stevia. I was keto for 10 years. I was eating stevia. I don't know anybody that does that. So when people think sugar addiction, they think it's that it was that bad.
Yeah.
This was
Yeah.
prior
That's
to going carnivore. And even more recently, which I'm doing now, is I had become a bit addicted to butter because
me too.
dairy, I I was eating too much butter. When I was feeling stressed, I would go eat butter. When I was lack of sleep, I'd go eat butter. What we want to do with carnivore is to break the cycle of addiction. You can still be addicted to carnivore foods. The thing is, it's most likely not going to be meat because
Right.
I actually don't know why that is. I don't know why meat is not very addictive in terms of you can just eat unlimited quantities. But butter was something that I had to, like, I haven't taken it out, but I'm reducing it drastically.
It feels like a treat, and it feels like you're almost doing something you shouldn't do, I guess. I really think there's something in all of us that makes us want to even wreck our own ship sometimes. Like there's just this rebelliousness that's inside of our hearts that causes us to do things that are self-defeating. And at least the only thing I can say is I'm thankful that my idea of cheating is having too much butter, or maybe sneaking a little bit of cream or something like that, or even having a coffee every once in a while. The only reason why I know I shouldn't do it is that it affects my digestion negatively. So I'm like, well, I guess I can put up with that for a couple of days. I want a coffee. I want to have a coffee with my wife, or I'm at work and they got the espresso machine going, and I'm thinking, man, I love a good espresso. So we still we still occasionally derail ourselves, but you know that's not so bad as the way derailing used to be for me. It used to be trying a donut or a Pop Tart or something ridiculous like that. So it's nice to
For
be
me,
at
it used
this
to be a
level
box
now.
of Krispy Kremes and not stop. A
Yeah,
box of Krispy Kremes, like, no joke, I would finish that whole thing. And you know what now, if I ever go have sugar, I cannot physically eat it, and I just think, "How did I ever eat that much?" Because that's the power of carnivore. If you ever have addiction, if you ever have anything like alcohol, tobacco, sugar, anything at all, go carnivore for 60, 90 days, try that thing again, and you'll see it's completely different.
you brought up something about how inflammation being the key. And I'm sorry, I hear something outside here. I'm at my mother's house, like I said, so I can't really control the volume of some things like I normally do.
That's
But
okay.
I wanted to say that point you made about the inflammation and starting with what your gut is doing being the key, because that is what has led to so much healing throughout my entire body. Is just realizing, wow, what I ate was making such a big difference, and the doctors had no answers for any of that stuff. But I did want to also ask, or not really ask, but point out something that I remember for the first probably year that I heard people say this. When they would say 80-20, I was thinking 80% fat, 20% beef? How am I going to buy a steak that's 80% fat and 20% beef? I was thinking of the physical wholeness of the meat, and then thinking that 80% of that quantity was fat. But what you're referring to is the amount of calories you get from beef and fat, correct?
Yes, and then I try to make it really simple. So instead of even don't even think about macros, 80-20, 70-30, whatever number. I'd like to get the numbers out of my head because I had the numbers in my head for 20 years and it destroyed me.
Right.
When you think about the simple foods, ribeyes, salmon, if you think about what's some other things that I eat, eggs,
Yeah.
bacon, what are some other foods? Mackerel, sardines. These have 1-to-1 protein to fat ratio. All that means is it's going to be 80-20. It's going to be 70-30, 80-20. That's all you have to care about. The only thing that you need to be mindful of is if you have pure animal fats, that's going to be a bit on the higher end. So you want to have something that is more, I mean, you can have that, but just in smaller quantities, because I also see a lot of women, they love their fat. So then when they get the beef trimmings, they'll have 3 ounces of beef trimmings. And that's a lot to have along with your steak. And what they do is they get the beef trimmings and they'll eat that first. And then they say, I'm not full enough to go eat my steak, because fat is very satiating.
Yeah.
And so it's important to get the fat and the protein together, then you don't have to think about it. If you want some fat after because you feel full but not satisfied, so there's a difference. Physical hunger versus emotional hunger.
Right.
If you feel that you're like, I just want something, but I'm really like not that hungry, then go for the fat.
Okay. Because I know I've done that too, where I take the cut off fat and then I'll fry it up because it fries up quicker than the steak, and I'll have already eaten all those little crispies before I even get to the steak. But I haven't had any problems finishing the steak, so I guess I'm okay.
But see, that's the difference with men and women. And it's not for every woman or every man. I just find that with the people I work with, my group, is that once they eat that fat, they're like, oh, I really can't eat the meat. I don't feel like eating the meat. So I think
Mm,
that with men, perhaps they just have a bigger appetite. I'm not too sure. But, and they can have that extra piece of meat. Or even women, they tend to overeat emotionally. They
okay.
can.
Well,
So
I know guys can do it too, so
oh,
because
definitely, definitely. That's why I said women. I was like, but men can really overeat as well.
oh yeah, absolutely. But I understand exactly what you're saying, and I know the ladies out there understand, so I hope they appreciate this. One of the viewers asked a question that I thought was kind of interesting, or not really asked a question, but posed something that they would love to see us do, and that was Tracy Parker asked. She said, "I would like to see you get a CACS coronary artery calcium scan done. My bet is the score of 0. I've been wanting to get one, but I haven't done that yet. I was curious if you had had one done."
I haven't had one done because I'm in Turkey, but when I move, we're planning to move to Canada in about 3 months. I really want to have one done. There's also another thing I want to test, which is apolipoprotein B, which is a really good indicator of inflammation, because usually people or the doctor's going to test cholesterol, total cholesterol, and LDL.
Hmm.
But then there's, you know, while that might be important, might not be important for overall health, there are better indicators of inflammation. And definitely your CAC score is very important. Apolipoprotein B, C-reactive protein, all these different things, they're going to be your indicators of whether you're going to have a heart attack, heart disease, and your overall health, not total cholesterol, not LDL.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that. I put out a blood work video just a couple months ago where my lipid panel was amazing. My HDL was technically high and my triglycerides were technically low. And my doctor's like, we don't see that in men, period. So it's very unusual. But she said that it's a good sign for heart health. But at the same time, they're not including some of these things that you're talking about. And I'm glad you mentioned some of those because I know there's a lot of confusion about blood work. Even after the first year and a half of me, or almost 2 years of doing this, I just really didn't understand it, because the more I would dig in with doctors to try to understand it, the more it felt like they were making it up as they went. And I started to think, well, how come there's no straight answers on this is high, that's low, that's why this is a problem, that's why this is not a problem? There never seem to be any straight answers. But I'm learning to accept that there's some mixtures, like you got to take into account your age, your sex, and there's a lot of, even your race in some cases. I know the EGFR has an African American and non African descent uh, differentiation. So there are some things that we have to be able to take some, not necessarily subjectivity to, but we got to add objectivity to different levels than just saying it's the same for everybody across the board. Same as with the diet. Let's see. Let me see what else folks have been saying here. I got a lot of comments. I've been hitting stars next to some of the comments talking about their experience on carnivore, so I can have one to choose from before we're done here. I also can eat only red. Okay, so like other some people have pointed out, Adita here said I also can eat only red meat, no pork, eggs, chicken, cheese. I have immediate inflammation. So you've had a
Yeah.
lot of people give you that experience too, because I notice I get that response quickly.
Yeah, inflammation, whether it be something obvious or something little. I noticed that when I eat too much butter, I started to get eczema on my arms, which was fabulous. So I thought, oh, damn, too many eggs can give me the same thing as well. But when I stick with the beef, it's just very, very, very easy.
Yeah. Let's see. What is this? Oh, Lord. Reading the comments sometimes can be a mixed bag. I can tell you that. Somebody commented on your statement. Oh, yeah, a box of Krispy Kremes. I can relate to that. And I can too. You know, Krispy Kreme was started down here in the South. So at least I think it was. That's what I always heard. I know that they were extremely popular. And when we used to go to church all the time, there would usually be a box of Krispy Kremes there for whoever wanted some.
Oh,
Let's see.
it's like it's a big trigger.
Okay, somebody brought up something about the CAC scan. Again, I'm a carnivore and have had high LDL. My CAC score is 0. And he says, my doctor says that I may have a clogged arteries because the CAC only tells calcified fat. She still wants me on a statin. So that's the kind of thing you hear, and you just ask yourself, what more? See, every time somebody tells me to go get some test, and it comes back with flying colors, there's always somebody else that's going to say, well, there's another test. And in this case, it's his doctor. So he's had the CAC scan and his score was 0, but the doctor still wants to put him on a statin. So that's where I have a hard time putting too much emphasis on what these tests say and putting a lot more emphasis on how you feel and how you look in some cases too. I mean, people talk about how my skin looks all the time, and I try not to. I mean, I don't want to let all this stuff go to my head because I'm not used to these kind of compliments. But it's nice to know that it's not only on the inside that I feel it, but it shows to other people. And when I get some blood work back, I get a mixed bag of results because people will say one thing is great, and then another person will say the same thing is terrible. So,
It's true. I think the main thing you have to do is to be educated yourself and, don't just rely on what your local doctor has to say. Seek out somebody that understands a carnivore or a keto diet so that you feel comfortable in your results. I know for me personally, my total cholesterol was extremely high. My LDL was extremely high, but my triglycerides were even lower than before prior to starting carnivore. But I mean, when I got my results, my doctor said that you have to stop what you're doing straight away. Otherwise, you're going to have to be on a statin. I immediately text Anthony Chafee and I started crying. And I said, this is what happened. He said, your doctor is stupid. Fire her and find someone else. What you're doing is fine. I was like, thanks. So
well,
I felt good.
it's nice to be able to call up a doctor like that. Unfortunately, a lot of folks out there aren't going to be able to do that, and getting a hold of some of them like Dr. Barry or Dr. Baker or any of them is going to be a little harder.
Yeah.
You think you could
Well,
turn the
even
sound off? Sorry about that.
that's okay.
She doesn't need to have the sound on. Oh boy. Anyway,
That's okay. That's the beauty of a live. It's real life and we love it.
yes, it is. It's definitely real life. I should have known anytime I've ever been at my mom's house, it's always like she's the center of attention for a lot of things going on. Poor woman. She's 82 years old. She's got her hands full, but they keep coming to her.
Oh, bring her on and so everyone
83.
can say hi.
Come here,
Bring
mom.
her
Say hi
on.
to everyone. She just got off
What
that
is
phone.
Dante's mom's name?
This is Priscilla.
Hello,
Priscilla Seymour is my
Priscilla.
mom.
Aren't you beautiful for 82?
She says you're looking beautiful for 82, but it's 83 actually.
83. Wow. Well done. Thank you. Nice to meet
She
you.
she actually was able to fix some of her health issues by cutting back on the carbohydrates. She didn't go full carnivore, huh? She's lost 30 pounds, she just told me, since she started eating a lot more
Wow.
meat and cutting back. And she's got a number of health issues that doctors haven't been able to do much with her, but it's really helped her to have her life back when she felt like she just couldn't get along sometimes. She still has AFib right now, which makes it really kind of hard for her, but she's doing the best she can, and I think she's doing pretty darn good for 83, and I'm thankful she's still with me.
And I'm
Um,
glad that you said that sometimes you have things like AFib that you can't actually totally cure with a carnivore diet, but it's going to
right,
help with symptoms. It's going to help with your energy. So carnivore is not about like just curing everything, like if you have cancer or, all these different things. It is about managing what you have, trying to improve it, but you're going to see so many benefits versus what you were eating previously. So it's not a be all, end all, cure all. Carnivore is great, but you have to do the other work as well. And it depends on different people. I think people don't talk about that enough, about the reality of carnivore as well.
right. Let's see. Cheryl Micklem here says, for you, how much butter is too much? I've heard Dr. Bright say women should eat a stick a day, and I know I saw Dr. Boz mention something about eating a stick of butter, and she said it's not an everyday thing in her short that she mentioned it on. So I was curious to hear what you thought about that. I know you talked about butter being something you had to cut back on too yourself, so maybe you could kind of answer that for people who can eat butter, and then also what to look for if you can't.
So I was eating a stick a day, a stick of butter a day, and then it increased to about a stick and a half a day. The only reason why I'm saying I have an issue with butter is because again, the eczema. But the main thing is that I can just keep eating butter over like more and more and more, and it becomes very addictive. So there's a difference
Yes.
between eating something that's nourishing and that you feel great off, but then when it's just I crave it every day. The thought of not having it, I feel worried about it. Like even traveling to KetoCon, I knew I couldn't have my butter and I just felt, oh my God, like that's so hard. So when I have that feeling, I know that perhaps I have an addiction to it and I'm just having too much of it. Now I'm having a third of a stick of butter. Or, in the US, it's like 2 ounces, half a stick. So I'm
Yeah.
still having quite a lot, but not one stick or a stick and a half of butter a day.
Yeah, I got to where I could eat a whole 8 ounce bar of Kerrygold very easily.
Oh, easily.
Let's see. RPG says, Dante, what worked best for you during a stall? And the only stall, when you say a stall, I assume you mean where you feel like your weight stopped going down or something like that. Um, Only recently, when I had this issue where I put on a few pounds because I was eating too much, did I start reincorporating in fasting for more than just a period of a day, where I guess you call that intermittent fasting. I was actually doing 2 to 3 day fasts, and I would start off with just doing butter one day, and that was all I was having on that day. And then the next day I was just well, other than water and salt. But then the next day I would have water and salt, and the next day I would have water and salt, and then come back off with maybe a couple of carnivore crisps or some bone broth or something like that to break my fast carefully. Even though it's only 2 to 3 days, I still like to make sure I don't get any type of refeeding issue. But uh, fasting is something I never thought I would be able to do in my life. I thought, fasting, why would I want to fast? There's just no reason to want to fast. But I found that it's been very helpful for breaking through stalls. And also, if like you want to prevent having loose skin when you lose a lot of weight, fasting has helped me to reduce the amount of loose skin I have. So I find that it has several benefits. I've even found that it has a bit of a spiritual benefit side to it as well, where I start to really feel like, man, I just don't need some of the stuff I thought I needed all the time. Because once you get deep into a fast, maybe 3 days or more, you get this real relaxed feeling like I'm good. I don't need any of that stuff. And that's a good feeling, to realize that you're not a slave to the things that we used to brag about. Like, I love to drink this, or I love to eat that, or we just revel in the things that are actually hurting us a lot of times. But when you realize you don't need those things, and when you see those ads when you're driving down the highway, the billboards with the hamburgers that are covered in ketchup and all the stuff, and the bread is there, and it's just dripping with stuff that you don't want on your meat. And you think that used to entice me to go pull over right now and get one of those. And now they don't have any power over me anymore. So that's another side of fasting that I like, is it's really helped me to break those chains of being a slave to something. but they're great for helping you with a stall sometimes too. If you feel like you're stalling out, even if you just do, 16 hours where you do one meal a day, you're doing 24 hours if you can spread it out far enough. But sometimes people do one meal a day where it's actually two small meals close together, and that's still technically considered one meal a day. So you could do a 16-hour complete break, and that'll help a lot of times because you're getting that your body into autophagy, and it starts to burn off some of that fat again, and it'll help you break through those stalls. At least that's what I've experienced. I don't know that that's the only or best way, but it's been great for me. How about you, Rena? Have you ever had anywhere you felt like you were in a stall like that?
I've never been in a weight stall, but in terms of, I mean, as I said previously, I can put on weight very easily, especially even eating meat. Anything salted, anything sodium, any sauces, anything on it, I'll put on weight very quickly. The main thing around fasting for me, and especially with people I've worked with, is you have to, for women perhaps, you have to be gentle to understand when is it restriction versus when is it healthy for you. And I find everyone is very different in terms of how they can handle a fast. For men, because again, they have less cortisol sensitivity, perhaps they can do an OMAD, they can do alternate day fasting. A lot of the time, I find with women, they do great on 2 meals a day. They do great on a 6 to 8 hour window. And having that time frame is really good because your brain is like, okay, this is when I eat, this is when I don't eat. I'm having 2 meals. Let's make them really hearty, really high in fat, and so that I feel very satiated. So it gives you a really good guideline. For me personally, I eat 2 meals a day, plus I have a fatty latte.
Okay. All right. Well, that is all very good information, especially, to be able to get both sides of the issue. Because I remember you saying that you used to have some eating disorders, and was like anorexia or anything like that one of those issues at one point? Or have you
So I
dealt
had
with
night
anybody?
eating. I had what's called night eating syndrome.
Night eating syndrome?
Yeah. So basically, what that means is you wake up in the middle of the night and you go to the fridge and you start eating the quantity of food that you would eat in a whole day at that time.
Okay, I see. And is that because you were restricting yourself during the day and you felt like you had to do that?
That is, well, what I've learned now, that is because of my childhood and because I was brought up in a very dysfunctional family. And so I used food as an emotional healing. And when I then wanted to control how I was looking on the outside to validate myself, I was limiting my calories. And then, not to the point of too much, but I was exercising a lot. So probably I wasn't getting enough nutrients. Plus, I was eating low fat, high carb. But then what happened when that cycle happened, then I'd really start restricting the next day. Because I wasn't hungry. Imagine if you ate your whole amount of food in a day at nighttime at 2 a.m. So I wasn't feeling physically hungry during the day. On top of that, I had a very bloated belly and I wouldn't want to go outside. I had
Mm,
severe social anxiety. I didn't want to be around anybody because I was ashamed. I couldn't tell anyone. Nobody knew about this. That's the other frustrating part. Nobody knew about this. And it's only through the mindset work that I was able to understand the patterning and understand why I was doing that behavior. And everything that whenever we're eating out of emotion, it's always coming from an a trauma, an experience, or something that's not physical. And understanding that is really important. It takes a lot of work, a lot of energy to understand why do you do what you do every single day, but it's very important if you want to break the bad habits. So if I go reach for some butter nonstop, well, why am I doing that? What do I need to emotionally feel full that I'm not reaching for food?
okay. Well, the reason I asked was is I wanted to make sure that when I talk about fasting, I also realize there are those people who will just go without eating all the time, and that becomes an unhealthy issue. So
Yeah.
talking about the emotional side of it being the impetus for whether you're eating or not, that's a big part of answering that question. So I appreciate that. Uh, Bella Marie asked a question. I think she has more in this question than's here, but it says, Rena, how much water do I need to drink and how much do I put in my water? I don't know what she meant by how much do I put, either salt or electrolytes. You might have an idea of what she's asking, though.
Drink when you're thirsty, drink away from your meals. And that's basically it. Your body has a regulation process to know when you have a thirst for a reason. So when you're thirsty, drink water. If you need to add anything to your water, add good quality salt. Electrolytes are fantastic, as Dante has his Relight supplement that is fantastically unflavored. But you can also just use really good quality salt if you want to go the free version. Drink when you're thirsty, eat when you're hungry. It's very, very simple. The risk of overdoing it with water is what's called hypertonemia, which means that you're drinking so much and then you pee out your electrolytes. So we don't want to drink too much water.
Okay, see, that's something that I haven't had a chance to even hear about either, because I do tend to drink a lot of water. Sometimes I drink it just because I don't want to get hungry too. So, like when I'm feeling hungry, sometimes I'll drink a little water, and that'll help me not to feel like I'm hungry. Because I think it's an emotional thing. I don't think it's true hunger, but having something to drink, I guess, makes me feel like I can get through it. So, are you saying that that might be not the best way to go about that, or is
I
that
mean,
something
that's
else?
perfect because sometimes we don't know whether we're hungry or thirsty. So try a bit of water and wait 15 minutes, 30 minutes. If you still feel that physical hunger, then go ahead and eat because definitely you might not know if you're thirsty or if you're hungry. But when it comes to the idea, because maybe I think I know where she's coming from, which is drink 2 liters of water a day, 3 liters, a gallon of water a day. Drink when you feel thirsty. If you feel hungry and it's at an unusual time, drink water, but not to the point that you're just drinking way too much. And a good test is to test your urine color. If it's too clear or if it's clear, it's a sign that you might be drinking a little bit too much water. If you have low energy, also a sign.
Yeah, I noticed I had a change in that myself. It used to be real clear all the time, and then I think I tried to cut back a little bit because I was drinking close to 6 liters a day at one time, and then I got down to where on average it's probably close to 4 liters.
But you're very active as well. You've got an active job and an active
Yeah.
lifestyle. So for you, it might be okay. Well, it is fine. But for somebody else that might be more sedentary, they don't need to have as much fluid, use your thirst signals as a really good sign.
All right. Well, I tell you what, let me see if there's any other questions here for anybody. Um, just want to make sure I cover all of that. I'm just so thankful to have had so many people here today. Well, I don't see any new questions, so I'm going to scroll back and just kind of randomly pick one of these starred comments that I've been putting stars next to so I can see which ones were sharing their carnivore story. All right, stop here. And I'm going to go ahead and share this. I hope she doesn't mind. Let me see. I started keto 4 years ago, had a stall and went carnivore, fixed another stall and went with lion diet. January 2022, have lost 224 pounds at 70 years old. My
That's
goodness.
amazing.
Well, you just gained a few pounds of air fryer, Tampa Jan, because I'm going to be sending you that London Sunshine air fryer that I mentioned earlier. I'll go ahead and show that to you again here. And for those of you who are still watching this live or are going to be watching this later after it's been recorded, you still have an option to take part in the other things that I'm giving away for the next few days. I'm going to be keeping an eye on the comments because I'm also giving away a Meter Plus. I'm also giving away one container of the Relight unflavored, and I'm giving away a bag of Carnivore Crisps ribeyes. So that way you guys will all have a chance to still participate, even if you weren't up this early on a Saturday morning. But I'll tell you what, it's been a real pleasure having you with me here, Rena. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with the audience before we go?
No, if anybody has any questions, they can contact Dante. He's got an amazing transformational story. But stay carnivore. Stay truthful to yourself and understand your why in terms of why you're doing this. Everybody has the power to change. We need to be in a community and a group to change. And I think with the help of Dante, you're going to be in good hands.
And you guys be sure to check out her channel at 5 Minute Body. You can see it listed in the picture underneath her image there. The at symbol 5, the number 5, and then the word minute and the word body. That way you can find her channel and find out more of what Rina has to say. And I appreciate all you guys being here today. Rina, thank you for joining me.
Thanks, Dante.
All right, I'll see you guys next time. And Rina, you take care over there in Istanbul. Is that right?
Yes.
All right, well, we look
Thanks,
forward to
Dante.
having you here in North America soon. When you come to Canada, be sure to let me know.
Absolutely. I can't wait.
All right, take care.
Thanks. Bye.